All right, fellas, we're live. Welcome to KBN Live, everybody. If you're just jumping on here with us, help us out and share this video to your local group, especially if you're going to fish the Lake Fork event next week or in the next coming weeks. We're going to have some good info tonight, I hope. Drop a comment for us so we know you're on here and kind of settle in. We've got a guest host back again, David Cruz, 2 weeks in a row. Thanks for sitting in, David. Ryan's tied up. He's up at a National Wild Turkey Federation something. And
I promise to behave today.
You gonna behave? Nah, let it fly. And then we've got a guy that we wanted on here for a long time, and he was willing to step in here for us tonight. Guillermo Gonzalez, thank you for taking the time to get on KBN Live with us, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Oh yeah, we wanted to have you on here for a while, and I figured with this upcoming Lake Fork tournament and another one back to back that it's time. You're kind of the guy down there. I mean, you're everywhere you go, you show up on the leaderboard, but I know you really have a fondness of Lake Fork, and you're going to be in the tournament, so you don't want to give up too much juice, but try to pick your brain about what you think may be going on down there and answer some questions from the crowd. So we appreciate it, buddy.
Sounds good. I'm ready to talk.
Yeah. So hey, let's talk about this. Just what was it, last week? You had a strong start to the year. We thought you were going to pull one off there in the first event of the North Texas season, and came out of the box swinging. We were pulling for you all day, and would you end up second in that event?
I did end up second.
Well, you want to talk about coming out of the duck hunting season and finishing how you did in that event and how you figured out the fish that day?
Sure. Well, duck season just ended. A lot of y'all know I kind of get a kick out of that, so I dedicate a lot of time to it in the off season. And for me, it's something that I kind of use to regroup before fishing season, because usually, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that experiences this, but by the end of the season, I'm usually so far into my head on techniques, tactics, whatever it may be, always trying to come up with new ideas, that it benefits me a lot to kind of take my mind off fishing for a few months. And when I go into a new season, I feel like I go in a lot fresher, and I just fish, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't think as much. I just fish, and that's kind of how I went into this tournament on Lake Fairfield. I've been on the lake before a few times. I fished a couple tournaments out there. I've had a little bit of success, and I didn't really get to practice. I just moved into a new house, and so I actually the only fishing that I had done all year before that tournament was I went over to my local lake, Lake Worth, for about 2 hours the day before to make sure that everything worked. Make sure my power pole worked, make sure my graph worked, and make sure that the drag on all my reels was set right. Showed up the next day and tried to kind of guess where the fish were. And the very first spot I pulled up on, I told myself, if the grass hadn't died from the winter in this spot, I'm going to fish this spot. And I think on my third cast, I caught my first keeper, and about 35 minutes later, I had 99.25 inches. So it was an awesome morning.
We watched that happen.
That's how you come back. Just show up, 99 inches in the boat, and you're like, okay, it's 2020. Here we go.
Yep, exactly. It felt really good. I honestly didn't see that coming. I had no idea how that tournament was going to go for me, but I'm not going to lie, pretty glad it went the way it did.
Yeah, man, that sets the tone right there. I mean,
takes the stress out of the rest of the season, huh?
Well, it at least gets it started on the right foot. It reminds me, gee, you can still fit. You can still do this. You know, you didn't totally forget in the last 3 months.
Is that how it usually goes every year when you come back from duck season, or is it sometimes a grind to get back in the groove?
Well, honestly, the first tournament of the year has always been really good to me. Last year on Lake Athens, I won the first tournament of the year, and then I don't really remember what happened the year before, but I mean, at least for the last 2 years, it hasn't been bad the first few tournaments.
Maybe it's kind of like when, I used to play a lot of golf. Like when you take time off, you come back fresh, and sometimes you hit the ball better than ever. Maybe that's kind of that deal, huh?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's kind of like
exactly.
you said when we first started. You're not really overthinking too much of what you're doing. You're just kind of just fishing or doing it. So that's kind of nice.
There's something to be said for that. I really believe that.
Well, let me ask you this. We're going to get to the Lake Fork talk, but everywhere you go, you don't have to travel a lot. I mean, Texas is loaded with tournaments. You could just stay right there and fish all you wanted to in tournaments. But every time you travel, everywhere you go, and people see your name on the list of anglers in the tournament, they know you're a threat. And sure enough, you show up in that top 10, whether it's Kentucky Lake or down at Caddo Lake or wherever it may be. What do you attribute that success to? Being able to travel with that, those techniques that are, those lakes are completely different than what you have in Texas.
Yeah, they're a little bit different, but what I gotta say about Texas fisheries is that we have some incredibly diverse fisheries here in this state. We have fisheries with current, we have fisheries with clear water, we have fisheries with muddy water, we have fisheries with cypress, we have fisheries with standing timber. I mean, we really have a little bit of everything. And when I first started taking kayak fishing seriously, I made it a point to when I was kind of quote unquote training, so to speak. I made it a point to not spend too much time on the same lake, to travel, to get a change of scenery as much as I can, because at the end of the day, in the tournament world, the scenery changes every time, and the fish that you're fishing for changes every time. So I kind of made it a point to not get complacent and just stay on my favorite fisheries. And I think that has helped a lot traveling, all over the country in the past couple of years.
I guess that's something a lot of people don't realize. Every time I think of Texas, I've only fished Lake Fork in Texas. So I just think of flat trees, mud bottom, but I guess that's not the case. There's some lakes with smallmouth, some rocks, some other different kind of water. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got it all here, and that's one of the reasons I love to live here, honestly.
Yeah, I've been talking. Ashley and I talk every time we come to Dallas about retiring down there. So maybe one day I'll roll up in that area.
I lived there for 4 years, and I'm planning on going back at some point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, where'd you live?
When I was stationed at Port Hood, I was down there at Harker Heights, just by Killeen, Texas, Central Texas.
Okay, cool. Close to Belton.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So is there a favorite type of lake you have in Texas or even across the country that you prefer to fish? I know you're kind of good in the grass. Do you like that better than anything, or does it really matter?
Man, that's a tough one. If I had to tell you what I feel like bread and butter is, it's gonna be your shallow kind of muddy reservoirs. The ones with bushes, the ones with reeds, maybe a little bit of grass sprinkled in. That's kind of my favorite. I love your typical East Texas reservoirs with timber. I'd say my weakness are kind of the highland reservoirs, like the Ouachitas, or like here in Texas, the Possum Kingdoms, the Beltons. The ones with really clear water. I've had a little bit of success, but I think it's definitely my kind of lake that I need to work on the most.
Yeah. Why don't you come up here to Beaver Lake? Maybe I have a chance to beat you then.
I'm down. I've always wanted to go up there.
Yeah,
He couldn't beat me last year, so you got nothing to worry about.
Shut your mouth, David. Shut your mouth, David. You live on the same latitude and longitude as me. It's kind of you're just straight west, so you're used to this. Well,
There's no fishing in Kansas at all, so you can't use that.
I'm trying to make excuses, man. Hush. Lambert chimed in, said he misses us. Thanks for getting on here, Guillermo. Miss you too, Lambert. Hope you're being good wherever you are right now.
Doubt it.
Yeah, stay safe. So let's see. One thing I wanted to talk about tonight before we get on to talking about Lake Fork is you still fish from your Diablo, correct?
Absolutely.
And everybody on all the pages, we have fun going back and forth about everybody's brands and talking about pedals and talking about this, but you smash fish paddling your Diablo a lot of the times in the tournaments that don't allow motors or whatever else. You just paddle your Diablo, handle business. So what would you say to the guys out there that say, man, I'm in a paddle kayak, I can't compete with none of these guys, it's not right?
I wouldn't be in a Diablo still if I didn't believe it, but I don't think, I think it's about what's going on up here more so than what you're paddling and even what you're throwing sometimes, you know what I mean? And I think if you can put yourself in a position where you think you can beat the guy in the Hobie, you can definitely beat the guy in the Hobie. I mean, even if the guy in the Hobie has a Torpedo or every piece of technology available at his fingertips, you could go out there in a Sun Dolphin 10, and if you think you can beat him, I think you can beat him too.
Yeah.
Believe it wholeheartedly. I think it's more about what's in here. A lot of these lakes have hundreds of fish in them, and you're usually all around them. It's just a matter of figuring out how to catch them.
Yeah,
right.
I love that. There's a fella here that's named John Evans. He's now in a pedal kayak, I think, but for years he beat the crap out of us, took our money, finished in the top 3 in the AOY every year in a sit inside. It was a little pungo. He carried 2 rods with him in a sit inside pungo and just dominated. So, I mean,
That's all you need.
yeah, that's all you needed. And he was real methodical and fished, his style and didn't worry about it. And by God, he showed up on the podium every other tournament. So, yeah, it doesn't matter what you're in.
That's cool. I admire that.
So, one more thing, then we'll get on to this. But what is – I know you're a versatile angler, but do you have a favorite technique that you like to throw? I know we talked about you flipping bushes and things like that you like to do. Is that your favorite thing, or is there one thing you zero in on?
If I had to, I love to topwater fish. If there's a topwater bite, I try to find it every time, every tournament, everywhere I go. I wholeheartedly believe that's a way that you get bigger bites. So if I had to pick a favorite thing, or maybe 2 favorite lures, it would be a saltwater skitterwalk and a frog, bar none. I like to walk baits.
Everybody out there taking notes.
Take notes.
You're getting on the Tackle Warehouse right now. Well, that's awesome, man, and that's a fun way to fish. So let's talk a little bit about Lake Fork. I mean, it's hosting 2 big events. We've got BOS next week. Next week we'll be down there. And then just a couple weeks after that, Bass will be back there in early March for same time as the MLF guys are down there, and probably everybody else in East Texas in March. They'll be circling around Lake Fork. But the weather has been kind of wild. I'm going to throw up a little graphic real quick if I can find it here. It's a pic of it's got 4 gates open on the dam, and it shows the lake level from January to now. We went from 3 feet below pool to above flood stage now. So what do you think about that, and what does that do to that lake this time of year, Guillermo?
Well, it's certainly not going to make things any easier. I believe that a little bit, but I don't particularly think it's anything to worry about. We're at a time and we're at a stage in what you can call, I guess, the bass migration, where bass they're at least wanting to move up, and rising water when fish are wanting to move up is not necessarily a bad thing. It's hardly ever a bad thing, really. It gives the fish a place to feel comfortable in. So, I mean, in my opinion, while changing conditions are never particularly good and they typically don't make things any easier, I don't think it's anything people should worry about when they come to Lake Fork here next week.
That's good. And I've seen some guys on social media, Dan Gwynn, I think, and Mike Ring. They've been throwing up some pics the last few days. They're already over there. And even a guy today, he said he was fishing the chocolate milk, and he had a nice 5 bass string of fish. So obviously it didn't turn them off.
No. And I really think that one of the things that makes the next couple of tournaments really cool on Lake Fork that we haven't had in the past with major tournaments like the Tournament of Champions is, in the past, especially with the TOC in the fall, there's fish deep, there's fish shallow, and there's fish everywhere in between. And I'm not saying that there aren't fish deep, shallow, and everywhere in between right now, but at least kind of all the fish right now have one thing on their mind, and that's moving up. Whereas in the fall, there's a million things going through their heads, and that can make patterning fish really, really difficult.
Yeah, a lot of guys are coming back to Lake Fork for, they make this kind of an annual trek from Colorado, New Mexico, all over the place. But the last few years they've been coming. It was in November for so many years with the the original TOC. And then last year we hit it in what was that, the beginning of June, which you said was kind of the magic time because a little bit of everything was going on. And now here we are in February, March. So the last few years it's been kind of cool to get down there and attack it in all these different seasons. Definitely, I guess, a pre-spawn time right now.
Absolutely. One thing that I've been thinking about is, and one thing that I kind of thought about even going into Fairfield last week is this winter has been really strange here in North Texas. I mean, in January, there were people that were out fishing, and in some places in the backs of creeks on a sunny day, we're clocking water temperatures at over 60 degrees, which is absolutely absurd for January. Now, it seems like here in the last 10 days, winter finally decided to start, and it really hasn't gotten warm at all in the last 10 days, and I'm anticipating that, the water temperatures are going to take a major dip from where they've been. But what kind of makes this unique is because it's been so warm, the fish have already been, thinking about wanting to move up. And as a result, I think that they're going to behave a little bit differently than they normally do at this time of the year. I think typically at this time of the year, people are still targeting humps, main lake points. They're targeting suspended fish in 25 to 30 feet of water. And I do not think that that's going to be the case this time. I think although the water temperatures are dipping, are taking a dip, and it's getting colder, I think the fish are, because of the warm winter that we've had, I think they're kind of in a mode to want to move up. And I think we're going to see a lot of really good stringers coming in between 5 to 15 feet of water. It's going to be really exciting.
So you think I'm sorry, David. Go ahead, buddy.
Weather this coming week is supposed to be really nice, 60s and 70s, correct?
I think from what I saw, at least Sunday and Monday is supposed to be really nice, and then it's supposed to cool back down for the rest of the week. At least from what I know.
Maybe even some more rain too.
Yeah, I think there might be some more rain as well.
Well, do you think, like you said, those fish are kind of they've got that move on their mind. So even with that, if there's an influx of cold weather, they're not going to back out all the way. They're just going to kind of hang out and pause maybe.
They may back out all the way, and we're going to find out next week.
That's right.
But I'm not going into it necessarily with the mindset that they're going to be way out there like they typically are at this time of the year.
Well, it's gonna be interesting to see. Like I said, this is the first time a lot of us are coming at this time of year. So they don't. What's the normal full on? They're up on the bed spawning like April, late March. What's normal there?
Usually you get there are times where you get a warm up in early March, and people start seeing fish on beds, especially if there's a full moon. I mean, once you get into March, it seems like all it takes is that full moon and the water to creep into the 60s, and people start seeing fish all over the place. One thing that's really exciting for Bassmaster is if it does warm up, this could be the Bassmaster tournament could be a sight fishing extravaganza, which, that could be a really good thing and it could be a really bad thing. Because once the fish on Lake Fork move on beds, the entire state of Texas finds out. And you can bet that just about all of East Texas is going to be on Lake Fork as soon as those fish are on beds, because that lake is an absolute freak show if you like to sight fish, when those fish are on beds, you're going to see more big fish than you've probably ever seen in your life. And you realize just how many big fish live in that lake that you don't catch.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy from the Lake Fork area yesterday, and he said that there's a couple large bass boat tournaments going on that same weekend as well.
Yeah, including MLF. So
Yeah.
that'll make things interesting.
Yeah, it could be fighting for space, but it's kind of that way all the time. Heck, we're down there in fall and it gets crowded sometimes. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
It'll be a good practice for the national championship.
yeah.
I think it's gonna be challenging in my opinion. I think it's gonna take somebody that knows how to fish in different conditions, deep, shallow, or even mid level, and it's gonna test it out. So whoever wins it, I think it's gonna earn it.
I agree. With the conditions changing the way they are, especially next week, whoever wins it is definitely going to earn it. But I still believe we're going to see some really big fish, and I think we're going to see some really, really great stringers.
Well, that was kind of my next question is, if you had to guess at a two-day total for the BOS event, what do you think it's going to take to win?
Man, that's a really on-the-spot question, huh?
What about you, David? We'll let Guillermo soak on it.
Well, it's usually 160s, 170s every time I've been there. So we'll go with, because it's the end of February and early spawn or pre-spawn. We'll call it. Let's call it 180. Let's be optimistic here. So 180. That's 90 each day. Doable, very doable.
Yeah. What, Jeff? Do you remember what Matt Ramey had in June?
Yeah, he had 102 day one. He had 180 something because he had 101 or something day one, and then had in the low 80s day two. So he had 185 or 184 or something like that.
Oh, okay. So if I had to guess, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to say two things. I'm going to say that it wouldn't shock me if we saw someone break 195. It wouldn't shock me. Do I necessarily believe it's going to happen? No. If I had to actually pick a number, I think I'm with David. I'm going to go with 190. Or he said 180. I'm going to go with 190.
Clifton just chimed in and said 210.
210.
And that's entirely possible, too. I mean, They live here, and when you really get on them, it can happen. I've had the 3 or probably 4 best fishing days of my entire life on that lake. And if you find the right little wolf pack, you can catch them quick, and they could be really big.
Yeah. Was it Richie McMichael last year in June? He said he had a 30-minute spree on one dock, and he caught like 96 inches in 30 minutes,
That was the only fish he caught all day, too, within 30 minutes.
It can happen in a hurry.
Yeah.
And even last year with Matt, same thing. He found a deal going in those pads, and next thing you know, or those grass mats, and next thing you know, he had 101 inches in no time. So, and I think Matt Scotch even said that he saw wolf packs of 7-pounders cruising and couldn't get them to eat anything there. So
I know where that was too. I'm going back there.
You're going back there? It's going to be different this year, man. They're not going to be in the same place.
We'll see.
Hey, is there any truth to the rumor that they were trying to spray grass up in Little Caney? I heard somebody said that somewhere, trying to kill grass or something like that.
I mean, this is what I have to say about that. They're always spraying some part of that lake in the summertime. I mean, you can count on it and you can bet on it. Now, where they've been spraying, I don't know. I will say they're getting better at spraying. They're getting better at picking out vegetation that they don't want and eradicating that particular kind. I still don't particularly agree with it, but they are getting a little better at it. And over the years, we're seeing in certain parts of the lake, we're seeing a little bit of resurgence of some of the good grasses that we like to fish. So I don't think we're going to see much of that here in February,
right.
Especially considering that the lake's been a little bit low. We might see, because of that, though, we might have some good little inside grass lines in certain parts of the lake that might kind of play a role. But aside from that, I don't think we're going to see as much of that real shallow grass that we've seen in the last few years around TOC time, or even in June, like we saw a little bit last year.
Right. So we had you guys guess on the length to win. Besides yourselves, who would y'all say to look out for as a contender for this tournament next week?
Brian Howell.
Brian Howell.
100%. That guy spends a lot of time on that lake, and I think he's going to kick their butts this week.
Yeah.
And I hope he does.
Yeah,
He's a good guy.
He is a real good guy, and we had him on a podcast and talked about him transferring from California to your area, and he kind of said something the same thing along the lines you said, is that out there where he lived there was a lot of diverse water that he could fish. So when he moved to Texas, it kind of fit, and he could get right in there. And sure enough, he has come right in and fit right in just fine, and done real well on those tournaments.
He did really good at Seminole too, didn't he?
He did okay. I don't remember where he finished at Seminole, but he was in the running there for a minute, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had at least one real good day.
Yeah.
Mm.
Cody, somebody chimed in. Cody Milton. Cody's always a threat, no doubt. But Cody's been to Fork quite a few times. He may be due.
Yeah.
He hadn't had a really huge tournament on Fork. He may be due. Who knows?
I've been there a couple of times, and it's always a different person. You got your one or twos, like Guillermo's always in the top 10 or whatever, but it's hard. It's hard to pick just one. But I have to agree, Mr. Howell is gonna do great, I think. And then I'm gonna try to go for first too. So who knows?
Yeah, no, I know you got to bet on yourself. If I wasn't betting on myself, I wouldn't go. But
there you go.
But you got to be looking out there and say, hey, because this community, we're mostly all friends, and we like to cheer for each other, and see your friends do well. So if it isn't you, you always have an eye on somebody that you think is going to do real well. I don't know. Like David said, there's always somebody that comes out of nowhere that rises up, it seems, and takes the title. There's a few people I'd like to see get up there besides myself. I got a few buddies from Arkansas traveling down. My buddy Jeremy Van, he's due down there. Krista Hibbs, she cashes strikes all over the place in this area.
She's good too.
She's ready to make some noise down there, I bet. So it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be
fun to see what happens.
One of my favorite things about Lake Fork is on any given day, there are so many ways to catch them. And I think that's one of the things that makes Lake Fork so special.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it's really anybody's game out there. I think anybody could approach Lake Fork thinking, I'm going to fish my strengths and do really, really well. So, it's really anybody's game on that lake.
Yeah, and for those that are traveling from out of town, I'd like to say, if you look back at the last several tournaments, you got Matt Ramey from New Mexico. You got Tyler Cole that won the TOC from Iowa. Ron Champion's done really well traveling from over in Georgia or Tennessee. So people from out of town have fared well. So don't feel like you're at a disadvantage coming in if you're on the fence about making that trip, because
especially at this time of the year.
Yeah.
We got a question
in fresh eyes, you can do even better.
Just a question on the comments for Guillermo, and it's from Brian Pierce. What is your favorite submerged grass bait for pressured fish?
For pressured fish, man, it's really hard, and this is going to sound so. It's just so dang hard to beat a Senko around pressured fish. One thing that one year I made work for me really well, and it's kind of one of the weirdest ways I've ever caught them, honestly. But we were on Rayburn, and everybody was flipping jigs in the hydrilla, and the 3/4 1 ounce jigs, trying to hit the different levels and whatnot, and the bite, for whatever reason, that bite hadn't been as hot as it had been for a lot of people in pre-fishing during the tournament, and even in the previous weeks. And I took an Excite Slim X, which for people that don't know is a lot like a trick worm, and I put a 3/4 ounce weight on it and absolutely hammered the crap out of them. And that was kind of one of the more unique ways that I've ever caught them, putting such a heavy weight on such a little bait. But I don't know, just a fun little note to add. But if I had to pick one bait, I think it's just really hard to beat a Senko in submerged grass.
Chase Tanner just stood up and screamed, the Senko King. Let's see. Ron said he's looking forward to seeing everybody at Fort. Glad to see him making the trip over.
Yeah.
Now,
I think Howell ended up on 13th at Seminole. I think David Cottrell said.
Okay.
13th.
So yeah, he did cast a check over there.
Yeah.
So right after the BOS event, Bass is coming back there, like we talked about it, in just a few weeks. You going to approach that one day? Do you approach one-day tournaments any different than a 2-day, or is it just all out for both?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to probably approach it a little differently, especially if they're on beds. I mean, I'm kind of excited to fish a one-day tournament on Lake Fork, to be quite honest. There's a lot of fish in Lake Fork, and if you're on a pattern, you usually don't have to worry too much about, fish management. But when you're trying to pick them off certain little spots, you got to worry about that a lot more. And it's kind of nice to go to Lake Fork, especially if you find some little spots, to know that you can just catch as many as you can and not have to worry about it for another day.
Right. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Like we talked about earlier, some guys get them on one dock or one tree or one little patch of grass. And if you've got to catch them on day two, I've seen many a tournament there that I've come down to that guys will put up big numbers day one and then that disappears on day two, or vice versa. So yeah,
especially at Fork.
Yeah. That happened at Seminole. Shoot, some guys ran out of fish or found them on day two. So,
yeah, it sounded like that lake changed a lot throughout the tournament, from what I gathered, at least, following it along.
So, what are your, besides these two tournaments, obviously, what's your plans for 2020? We talked a little bit before we came live that you were considering Logan Martin. What else are you talking about getting out to?
Well, I'm trying to be as committed as I possibly can be to the Hobie Trail, and as well as Bassmaster. So as of right now, I'd have to actually look at my calendar, but I've got a good part of the Hobie Trail on lock for this year. I should be at Kentucky Lake. I should be at Dardanelle. I should be. Oh my gosh, I'm a little blank right now on where they're all at. I'm considering. I don't know if this is going to happen, but I'm hoping that I can find a boat and all that and try to get on the tournament on the Delta, the Hobie tournament on the Delta. I think that could be really exciting. It's fishery that I've never been to, always wanted to fish. I don't know if I'm going to make that happen yet, because a lot of things have to come into place. That's a lot of travel, but I'm hoping I can make that happen. I think that could be really cool.
From the sound of things, there's some guys out there willing to hook people up with boats. So I bet you somebody out there in the nation will get you a boat. That ain't gonna be.
It happened quite a bit last year too. People were borrowing boats and just flying into events and flying back out home. So,
and I think that's how I'd have to do it. So We'll see what happens here.
I'm excited you're coming over to Dardanelle. You fished there before?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Dardanelle. That's honestly probably the tournament I'm looking forward to the most. I've always wanted to fish it, and I've never fished it.
Okay.
So
I got people, Lambert and those guys from across the Mississippi River are like, man, there ain't no fish in Arkansas. They're hating on Dardanelle, but Dardanelle's a good fishery. That'll be a good tournament.
Oh yeah, all my buddies that I know that have ever fished it really like it. Yeah. And so I was stoked to see that lake on the calendar.
Man,
You mentioned frog fishing earlier, so I'm assuming you're gonna make lacrosse.
I don't know if I'm gonna make lacrosse yet. That would be really cool. I've heard about the frog bite over there. I hear it's kind of a big deal, but I don't know if I'm gonna make that one yet. We'll have to see.
Have you been up there and fished in lacrosse?
I've never been to lacrosse.
Man, I went there for the first time last year. That place is wild. It's an awesome place to go fish. I mean, it's very, very unique to a lot of the other places we go.
Well, I'll definitely try. I'm going to try to make it to all of them, but I just, you know how it is. Yeah. Life gets in the way sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Lincoln Stewart asked a question. He asked, what's your routine for research and practice? How much water do you generally cover in a day?
For research and practice, so one of the things that I'm kind of a believer about is I try really hard not to do too much research. I usually think way too much when I do too much research. So I'll spend, max in a lot of cases, maybe 2 hours before a big tournament, and especially on a lake I've never been to, and I'll try to pick out kind of areas that I like. And then it's not till I get on the water for after day one, and I see more or less how the lake lays out and how it fishes. That's when I start really doing research, and I start trying to use what I learned that day to decide, okay, where do I really need to be on this lake? Because a lot of times I find that after spending a day on the water, everything that I thought was going to be good, for whatever reason, I change my mind on it, and I start doing some other stuff. But when I do too much research, I usually get in my head, and I have no idea where to go, instead of just going somewhere and trying to figure the fish out.
Yeah, makes sense. A lot of people get locked into force feeding what they think should be happening and waste all day.
I have my best.
Given day.
Go ahead.
Just to finish answering the question, on any given day, I could get on the water and fish for 15 minutes and decide, you know what, I don't like this. I'm going to pick up and I'm going to go, and I could get on the water and cover 12 miles. So, I mean, it really varies depending on the fishery and what I'm doing.
That's cool. So if you're pre-fishing and figure them out quick, do you just pack it in? Or do you
never.
Keep
You got to have a plan B.
Some people do. I know my old butt. If I figure it out in half a day, I'm out of there because I'm too old to stay out there all day long if I don't have to. No, that's good stuff. Somebody said don't forget about Lake Conway. I don't know about a lake tournament on Lake Conway.
I think there's a KBF Pro Tour tournament over there in Arkansas.
Oh, okay, I got you. Conway's a pretty cool lake too. It's all full of cypress and lily pads and stuff like that. A little bit smaller, but anyway. If you guys have questions out there, keep firing them. We got Guillermo for a little while longer. We got Cruz up there if you got something for him. But keep firing them on the chat, and we'll try to answer them the best we can. You said you were thinking about going to Logan Martin, Guillermo? That's on the list, perhaps? Have you ever fished there?
I'm trying to decide if I can make it happen. I'm leaning kind of towards going right now, just because, it sounds like it being the first ever, Bassmaster Kayak tournament, it's going to be a heck of an event, and I'd really hate to be the guy that misses out on that. Especially, it sounds like it could hit, I don't know, 170, 180, who knows how many people. So I mean, that doesn't sound like something I want to miss out on for sure.
It's I've never fished that lake. Have you been over there before?
Nope.
Full of the big spotted bass. So, and I think it's been facing some of the same issues that Fork has with a lot of water coming into it from the rain. So that should equalize things a little bit for us coming from out of town, trying to figure out the floodwaters over there. But it should be fun, and it's on a Thursday. That's kind of unique.
It is kind of unique.
Steve-O said, I think top 10 gets to go on stage and get called out. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah, and then I guess you can hang around for Friday, Saturday anyway, after the tournament. Usually we're fishing on Friday and Saturday, so you can hang out and mill around, see what's going on. But those that are fishing all three, man, what a 3-week stretch it's going to be. Fort, Logan Martin, Fort, with like 1 week off in between. A lot of people are doing it, though.
It's definitely going to be a marathon, but it's going to be a fun marathon.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. David, you going to Logan Martin?
I want to. My days off are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so I could make it if I wanted to. But I'm also trying to make the Lake Fork on the 14th of March.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if I can swing 3 weekends in a row with my wife. So I don't know.
You got that new baby, too. I understand that.
Yes, indeed. So
congrats, man.
It'll be Lake Fork back-to-back within 2 weeks, probably.
Yeah, okay. What about Beaver's Bend? Anybody going to that? Guillermo stepped in there out of nowhere and won that like 2 years ago. You coming back to that one?
Man, I get so excited for that tournament. I love going to Broken Bow, and I would encourage anyone from anywhere in the Kayak Bass Nation to come down. It's such a fun lake to fish at the time of the year that they choose to do that tournament, and the lake just has so many fish, and then the group of people that run it do a really, really good job, and the group of people that fish it are really fun to hang around. So it's a tournament that I always really look forward to, and I would encourage anyone to come out from anywhere and try to come down and enjoy the lake for what it is, because it's a wonderful place.
To me, it's like the most underrated tournament. I don't know about in the country, but at least in mid-America, people that know about it love it, but a lot of people still don't even know what it is or know about it. It is an awesome event.
I agree. It definitely is underrated. You don't hear about too many real big tournaments going on out there for whatever reason.
Right.
But it is such a fun place to fish, especially when we're over there in April. I'm stoked for it.
There's been it held the lake or the record in Oklahoma for a little while. There's been some double digits caught over there. Your buddy Joseph, he caught a double digit over there, right? A couple years ago.
Yep. He went out there his first time ever on the lake, and he said he caught 10, 12 inchers and a 12-pounder.
To make up that difference.
Yeah.
And didn't you tell that story to me that he caught that on like a drop shot or whatever he had with him and landed it on light line or something like that?
Yep, he caught it on a drop shot with 6-pound test.
That's awesome.
I would have had a heart attack.
Oh, man. I'm telling you.
That lake is huge, too.
Yeah. It's really
So
unique.
plenty of room.
Really unique lake. There's not a lot of places to launch. There's no houses on it like a lot of lakes. It's just, it's real unique, real fun to fish. And like Guillermo said, this fish, typically in April, there's a bunch of them either up or moving up, and you can catch them in all kinds of ways. Looks like the Backa family's trying to make it happen. Get her to fish, David. I don't know what Ryan's talking about. He trying to get
my wife.
Oh, you trying to get? Oh, she's been to Beaver's Bend before.
She went to Beaver's Bend. Yeah,
photos.
She did.
Yeah.
She might stay back this time though.
Yeah, I got you.
Mama duty.
Mama duty. All right, guys. If you're on here, keep firing those questions. We got Katie dropping the links like always.
She's on point.
Coming in clutch. So, what's next locally there, Guillermo? Do you got anything coming up soon local, or are you just kind of geared up for these big tournaments that are coming up?
You know, I think the next local tournament is going to be Cedar Creek, and it's honestly I'm not thinking about it too much right now, just because there's so much going on in the next 3 or 4 weeks with Fork and Logan Martin. But I'm pretty sure that Cedar Creek's our next one. It's a pretty cool lake in East Texas. It should be a lot of fun.
Duke keeps trying to talk me and everybody talks to into making that Lone Star Throwdown y'all do. Is that worth doing in the fall?
Oh, goodness, yeah. That is one of the most fun tournaments I fish every year. When it comes to just having a good time, I don't think there's a tournament that beats the Lone Star Throwdown.
Okay.
I mean, it's honestly, to be totally frank, I mean, it's much more of a party than it even is a tournament. It's almost like a celebration of kayak bass fishing in Texas. It's more what it is above anything. I was going to say I don't really remember, but I do remember who won last year because it was Matt, and he absolutely kicked all our behinds. But great event. I don't know if it would feel weird for someone from Arkansas to come down and fish the Lone Star Throwdown because you'd have to pick a side.
Yeah,
you'd have to decide who you're fishing for.
He told me if you fish a tournament in Texas, you're qualified to show up.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
there you go.
Maybe I just let that out of the bag. Maybe he was just being cool to me that one time. I don't know.
Is it any event in Texas or one of the local clubs?
I don't know. Texas guys are going to revolt and say, "Hell no! Keep these people out of here." It's Texas only.
I think you got to fish a local club tournament to be able to fish a throwdown. At least one.
All right, so I'm gonna come down and fish something then. Pay an entry fee and throw a couple topwaters. Do something just to get in. Because I've heard too many stories not to make it at least once.
No, you should. It's a lot of fun. I really recommend it.
AJ chimed in. He said Lake Fork Marina still has a few spots left. So if you're coming down for the BOS event, there's some places like Lake Fork Marina.
It's a great spot.
Come over there and leave with your pants not fitting. Eat some of the pie and cheeseburgers they got in there.
You can find me in there right after fishing every day.
I believe that Scenic 515 still has spaces.
Okay.
And another place that I recommend, at least for the Hobie tournament, is Oak Ridge Marina has a few rooms as well. I think Oak Ridge is going to be the MLF site in March, so that's probably not going to be a real good place to stay in March, but that's another good place to stay.
Okay. Clifton Allen chimed in and said any event for the throwdown. I don't know what that means. Any local? Just any event within the state border? I don't know. I'm gonna find out.
Everyone who goes to the Hobie tournament needs to come down and fish the throwdown.
Boom.
There you go.
See, now you qualify. You automatically qualify for the throwdown if you show up at Lake Fork. How amazing is that? You're adopted as a Texan for one weekend.
North Texas, South Texas, which one?
Well,
I mean, I think at that point you'd have to pick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Pick your side, who you're going to represent.
Maybe it'd be like a fantasy draft. They can just pick all the out-of-towners. Or blind draw them. I don't know. Let's see. Katie, she's dropping the 515 cabins in the link. We're going to put her on payroll pretty soon. Oak Ridge Marina. All the links are in the comments. Everybody, I'm not even going to say it anymore. People just know it by now that every time we do a live, the links are in the comments, courtesy of Katie Baca. She's the bomb. So, Annie in Texas. Let's see. We got some more comments coming in. Annie in Texas is what Duke said. People are begging for. If you want to win, fish the north. Any truth to that, Guillermo?
I'd say if you want to win, fish the north. You want to have the most fun, fish southeast.
Okay.
Those guys know how to have a good time.
All right. All the cool kids in the north, they say. All right. Any more questions out there from anybody? I'll give you a few more minutes to ask them. We're going to let this fella out of here, man. We sure appreciate you taking the time tonight. I know.
Absolutely.
I know you got a lot going on.
My pleasure, guys.
Yeah, it's. I don't know how cold it is or what's going on down there. It's freezing here, so I didn't have anything else to do anyway but sitting here.
Single digits in Kansas today.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, crazy.
That sucks, man. It's like 30. It's like in the high 30s here, and I'm suffering.
Yeah.
You people down in Florida and Georgia, the same thing they always say. It's like, is it cold? What do you mean? 60? 50?
Yeah.
Nothing else coming in, so let's wrap this thing up. David, what else you got for us?
That's it for me. Looking forward to Lake Fork, a Hobie BOS event on next week, and then the BISS event on March 14th. So I hope to see everybody there. Come hang out with me and everybody else.
All right, man. It's going to be fun. Guillermo, anything else?
I'll come out. It's going to be a good time.
All right. Hey, Guillermo, once again, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching and commenting on the stream. Anybody that catches this later on the podcast, help us out on the podcast and give us a little review over there on iTunes. We're going to wrap it up. We're out here tonight, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.